Okay. So welcome to our evening, which will be an introduction to community college and professional career school pathways. We're also going to get into other career pathways such as apprenticeships and Job Corps, which is another route some of our students take to finding a career. So before we jump into the subject, I just want to give a quick refresher for all of you of our counseling department team. And our school counselors are Diane Berry. Our school counselors are Diane Berry, Brianna Trevino, Maurice Montero, and Carrie Phipps is our 9th grade counselor this year. So you can see the alphabet breakdown if you're not already familiar with your counselor. And next year, Carrie Phipps is leaving us to go teach in Ghana. We'll have a new counselor, and the counselors will be switching to all 4 counselors, all 4 grade levels. So we have a great new counselor we just hired. So your counselor may be shifting next year, but it's really good, especially if you're a junior and you haven't gotten to know your counselor, to start to reach out to them, check in with them and let them know maybe some of the options you're thinking about for after high school and find out how they can support you. And then of course, there's me, Jen Marsden, the College and Career Specialist and Aspire Coordinator, and Karen Baratz, who is our Scholarship Coordinator and also our Counseling Office Manager. So tonight's goals, there are 3 of them, and just move this, I don't know if it's blocking the screen or not. Tonight's goals are to learn how to utilize the resources that will help you plan for your education after high school. Really important, any presentation I give, really like to emphasize the resources that are available to you so that you know where to find the information that will be helpful when you need it. The other thing tonight is all about is exploring educational opportunities available at community colleges, like I said, professional career schools, and through other programs. And always important when we're talking about looking for a pathway for after high school, the importance of finding a school or program or career that is a good fit for you, the student. So this process of finding a post-high school plan can be simple or complex. A lot of students get stressed about it. It's going to be really difficult. For a lot of students, it's really pretty simple. They have an idea of the kind of school they want to go to, program they're interested in, say they want to be a dental hygienist or a firefighter. They know that Central Oregon Community College or RCC has that program. They know they can get in. They know their family can afford it. Senior year is not that stressful in terms of figuring out what they want to do. For a lot of our students, it's a little more complex, more that second line, sometimes not so squiggly, sometimes very squiggly. For some students, it could be they're looking at a 4-year college, maybe a community college, looking at some different campuses. So we just like to use this graphic to really take some of the stress away for students and parents. Like, this doesn't have to be a really overwhelming process. It's really just about looking at your next steps and figuring out what's going to be a good fit for you for your next steps. So here I am, resources. I said we were going to really get into resources. So here are a few of the resources that are available to our students. Like I said, the AHS College Handbook that I put in the chat already, and I'm going to refer to it as we go through the presentation. SCOIR, that is a college and career exploration platform that all our students have access to, and juniors this year, we introduced them to SCOIR and they were able to take the youth science assessment, which I'll talk about a little more, to really give them an idea of their aptitudes. And it also looks at their interest, maybe start to generate some more ideas of career and educational pathways that might be a good fit for them. So we have a college and career center. I'm sitting in it now. It's great to have some kids back on campus and stopping by to check out resources and talk to me. So that's always wonderful. And when students are back on campus, we have a lot of meetings here, visits from colleges, college representatives. We have Job Corps representatives come visit. So lots of hustle and bustle here and ways for students to find out about programs that might interest them. Aspire is a program I run. It's a statewide program where we have adult mentors from the community who are trained to help students find college and career pathways that will be a good fit for them. And so if a student wants some more one-on-one adult support, Aspire might be a good program for them. And then a really great thing we have at Ashland High School is all our seniors get to take a college and career readiness class in the fall of senior year. So this is really a support class to help give students really guided step-by-step how to get to where they want to be. So I spend a lot of time in our CCR classes, come in early on, looking at all the different options. We go over financial aid, we do financial aid applications, we do scholarships. There's also a career readiness component where students work on resumes and cover letters and interviewing skills. So we've had the, I think, for about 5 years. I think this is our 5th. And it's really been a great support for students, and it's evolved. And I always really like parents to know that students are going to have that support fall of senior year. And then also in normal years, and we're starting to have that again, I mentioned we have a lot of college visits here on campus and a lot of information nights like tonight. So students and parents can just keep an eye out for those in the announcements in the Grisogram, a great way to learn about the different opportunities that are out there. So any questions yet? Take a breath, see if anyone has a question. Feel free to just jump in if you do. So like I said, we really like to emphasize that this process is about finding an educational pathway, a career pathway potentially, that's a good fit for the individual student. And in the college handbook, there's a whole page on this. And you can go down all sorts of rabbit holes with this, especially when you're looking at four-year private schools, public schools, but it really also comes into play when you're looking at community colleges, when you're looking at potentially apprenticeship programs, private career schools, like what is going to be the best fit for the students. So you want to look at, do they have the academic programs you're interested in? Size, do I want a big school, a small school? Do I want to be close to home, far from home, in a city, in a rural area? What's the culture like? The atmosphere. And one of the most important factors for our students is cost. Is this a good financial fit for our family? And net price calculators are on here. This doesn't apply so much to community colleges. All four-year universities are required to have net price calculators on their website, where students or parents can enter a family's financial resources, information about the student's academics, and the school will give you a pretty good idea of what that school might cost for the student to attend. So those can be really useful, take some of the guessing out of the college search process. And then we talk about creating your list. Like it could be fairly simple. You know, you want to be a firefighter, you're looking at schools that have firefighting programs. Say you're looking at COCC, RCC, most of our students can get into both of those schools, and I'll go into the admissions process for community colleges. But then you start to look at the costs, how far, and we're going to get into this about cost of attendance, where there's a whole page on that in the handbook. So I end on this slide with spend the time exploring and researching to find a school that or a program of study that's a good fit for you. Because the more effort both students and parents put into this process, the easier the decision-making is going to be in the spring of senior year. The more likely the student is to have a successful transition experience. It really is important. And in doing the research and really checking out the schools and the programs, doing the aptitude, the interest profilers on SCOIR, students can learn a lot more about themselves, and it's really a great time for self-reflection. What's important? What am I looking for in my next steps? And it's really worth investing the time. So I'm glad you're here tonight as juniors and some of you as sophomores to really start thinking about the different potential pathways. So I am going to switch over to show you the handbook that I put. This is talking about some of the things, and we're actually just going to look at them. So here is what the college handbook looks like as a PDF on our website. Nice table of contents so you can find the information you're looking for. So first thing is a high school junior year checklist. Of course, this year has been a little different than normal junior years. And the second page has a senior checklist and some great online and book resources, some information about where our students go to college. And this was for the class of 2019. With COVID last spring, our stats were a little wonky and we didn't get a really full picture from our students, but you can see a large number of our students go to two-year community colleges. Scroll down here, SAT information. One of the things I really want to draw your attention to, this is the section I referred to about the college search. Keep scrolling down. I'm going to move this so I can use this. Go a little faster. This is all private school. So here is cost of attendance, standard student budgets for all the schools. And this was for 2019-20. We have one for 2020-21 for this year. It's just not in the handbook because it hasn't been revised yet. So you can start to see the difference in costs in tuition at a community college here versus the state schools. So pretty significant difference. So is everyone seeing this? I just want to make sure that I'm sharing my screen. Someone give me a thumbs up. You're looking at the cost of attendance, the handbook with me. Okay, thanks. And then also the private universities are on here as well. So this is what I really wanted to draw your attention to here. It's the Oregon Community College View Book. And I love this just as a jump off point. It gives you a list of all the community colleges. But one of the cool things in here is it lists all the different certificate programs, associate degrees available just in one quick place. And then along the top, you can see all the colleges that offer the programs. Now, this is a few years old. They haven't done one since 2017. You can see the date up here. But it's a great jump off point for students and parents just to kind of just scroll through it and see, wow, I didn't know you could study this at a community college, or, oh, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, this sounds cool. Hospitality management or aquatic sciences. There's just so much. Community colleges have really embraced in, I don't know, the last 10, 15 years, a lot of these career pathways that students are really interested in, where you can come out of a community college in 1 to 2 years, you know, ready to just hit the ground running in a career. So this is a really useful piece. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So any questions about that while we're there? So also in the handbook, which I didn't scroll all the way through because it's a little farther back, is a page on private career school tips and researching there. So you might want to keep an eye out for that too. Oh, I didn't want to go back to the beginning. We'll just go through this quickly. Okay, so I mentioned SCOIR, our exploration, college and career exploration platform. So any juniors here, thumbs up? Have you done use science? Have you gotten to explore some of the resources in there? Okay, let's see. Somebody's putting something in the chat. Oh, how do I get this handbook online? Okay, found it. Cool. Yeah, I put it in the chat, but some of you actually may have gotten here since I put it in the chat. And that's one of the weird things about the Zoom chat. If you show up after something's put in, you can't find it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat again for those of you who came in after I started the presentation. So there it is. So SCOIR is great, and I'm not going to go into it now. But if you're a student who hasn't really explored it yet, or you're a parent who hasn't, your student hasn't talked to you about it, or you're a student who hasn't finished the assessments yet, it can really be an awesome tool. And we had a SCOIR information night 2 months ago, and there's a video of it that really goes into detail about SCOIR and all it can do. And that's on our AHS YouTube channel. So you might want to check that out, or just message me and we can connect on Zoom and look through your science assessments, and I can help you individually on that. Okay, so why isn't this going? Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is just a general slide about community colleges. Most students and a lot of parents really don't know the breadth of community colleges that we have in Oregon. They know we have RCC, they know the downtown campus in Medford, but there are 17 community colleges in Oregon. And in fact, RCC has 3 separate campuses, the one downtown in Medford, the Table Rock campus, which we're gonna talk about because a lot of their CTE programs are there in White City. And then they also have a campus in Grants Pass, which is their original campus. And it's more that traditional grassy buildings kind of campus. So there are 17 community colleges in Oregon, 3 in Northern California, in Weed, Redding, and Eureka, that we have reciprocal agreements with. So we do send students down to those schools and they don't have to pay out-of-state tuition. We have a lot of sports students actually who like those schools because they have pretty robust athletics programs, and they also have a lot of great academic programs as well. So one of the awesome things about community college is there's no minimum GPA requirements to get in. Be a high school graduate, have a GED, you apply. It takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to apply to most community colleges, depending on the questions. For most of the schools, it's free to apply. There's no ACT, SAT required. One of the big benefits, which we'll talk about more towards the end of this, when we talk about financial aid and scholarships, is that community colleges have lower tuition costs than four-year schools. And there's all the various career pathways we've talked about. Some have housing options. Central Oregon Community College in Bend is really popular with our students. One of the reasons is they have dorms there. It's a very traditional college campus kind of feel, and it's Bend, and there's all the skiing and mountain biking and rivers. So it's a really great option for a lot of our students. Like I mentioned, some have athletic programs, which a lot of our students love. They want to continue playing their sport in college, and community college gives them a way to do that and to go to our school. And another thing about community colleges are students can start at a community college and then transfer to a four-year university. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide more. And the Oregon Promise, which is our state's grant to make community college affordable for all Oregon students. All you need to have is a minimum GPA of 2.5, and the state will give you an Oregon Promise grant to help make community college affordable. So any questions before I move on to the next slide?
I do.
Ooh, great.
Well, so my question was, is college altogether like more revolved around like high school, like, is the stuff that you do in high school affect what you can do in college?
So you mean the classes you've taken or your GPA or?
I mean, mostly classes that you take.
So not really. I mean, if you've taken classes that are, say, AP classes or career technical education classes that you've gotten college credits for, that can affect kind of where you start in college. If you've already got some credits, you might start in some higher level classes. Depending on what math level you got to in high school can influence where you start in math at the college level. So in those ways, your high school performance or experience can affect what happens in college. Is that answering kind of what you were asking, or were you looking for anything else? Okay. Okay. And I work with a lot of students and parents together one-on-one too, to look at your high school transcript and to kind of really give you a picture of what it's going to look like in that transition. And honestly, I'm really glad you brought that up because I didn't really talk about it in the college fit. What a lot of our students don't do is really look at what the program requirements are whether they're going to a 2-year college or a 4-year school. Like a lot of 4-year schools have a lot of general education requirements, which we're going to talk about next, in addition to what you study for your major. Same thing, some community college programs can have similar gen ed. Some don't have much at all. Career training schools, that's one reason some of our students like those. There's not a lot of the general ed that you might have to take if you went to a community college. So it's really good. And I'll show you on the RCC site, you can really dig in and see, like, these are the actual classes I would take if I want to be a firefighter, or these are the actual classes I would take if I want to be a medical assistant or a physical therapy assistant or a dental hygienist. And so you can really get a sense, and you can compare the schools, different schools, programs, and really then make a more educated decision about what's going to be a good fit for you. Okay, click back on here. Okay, can you all see the chat on my screen or no? Okay, oh, someone just asked a question, which is good, about income requirements for the Oregon Promise. It usually isn't complicated, and that is a really good question. So since we talked about the Oregon Promise, I'm just going to say now, the Oregon Promise has been around for, I think, 4 or 5 years. There used to be no income cap. So a family could make $1 million a year, and the state would still give their student close to $4,000 towards their community college tuition each year for 2 years. Last year, for the first time, because of COVID, the state was worried there wouldn't be enough funds potentially to give all students who applied and wanted to use the Oregon Promise the grant. So they did put in what's called an EFC cap, an expected family contribution cap. Expected family contribution is a financial aid term, and I'll talk about it at the end. All financial aid revolves around the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. And what it does is take all your family's financial resources, family demographics into consideration, and spits out an EFC. So last year they did have a cap for this year's first year students in college and community college, but it was a pretty high cap of $22,000, which estimates out to, for a family of 4, I think over about $100,000 a year. So it's a pretty high cap. They just last week said they're having a tentative cap for this year's seniors. The tentative cap is $42,000. That is a really high EFC. So your EFC, just for ballpark, is usually about 15 to 18% of a family's income and assets. So if an EFC is 42,000, we're looking at a family that's making over $160,000 a year in income and assets together. So it's a pretty generous cap. Most of our students qualify for the Oregon Promise. 9 out of 10 students who apply for the Oregon Promise are awarded the Oregon Promise. There's pros and cons to having a cap. This is a really high cap. Some people feel like if people are making really good income, they can afford to pay several $1,000s to send their students to community college. But other people feel like it should just be a grant that is accessible to everyone. So did that answer the questions about the EFC, the cap for the Oregon Promise, kind of moving forward? Let's see, one more question. Good question. So when do students apply for the Oregon Promise? This will make the end shorter. So they do that in senior year. And that's one of the things we do in their CCR classes. It's a really quick application. I encourage every single senior to apply, even if they're sure they're going to a 4-year university or they're sure they're taking a gap year, because people's plans change. And I'm all about exploring options and then keeping as many options open as possible. And honestly, now that we've all lived through COVID and last year's senior class, what they went through, it was really easy to convince students this year, like, you want to keep all your options open. And it's really a bummer when kids come to me in the summer or in the fall and say, hey, I was going to go to U of O, but now I think I have this great job in Ashland and I want to stay here and go to RCC. And it's like, great, you can use your Oregon Promise. And then we look and they never finished the Oregon Promise application, or they didn't put a community college on their FAFSA, which is part of the process. So kids will think I'm nagging them, or parents will say, why? My kid's going to U of O. I really encourage you because now we know, I mean, things always potentially change, but there's just a few easy steps to keep these options open for students senior year. Okay, so I should get, because I do not have a clock, so my phone so I can get a sense of what time it is, because we've got a lot to cover and I only have a half hour more. So we've already talked a lot. So the two main areas that are huge strengths for community college are one, community colleges offer students, like I said, a low cost, time efficient way to pursue general education credits and explore major specific courses, and then move on to a 4-year school. So this little graphic here, you do 1 or 2 years at a community college, you can get an associate's degree, either an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science, and then transfer to a 4-year and finish up your bachelor's degree there. For a lot of our students, it's a much more cost-efficient way to do it. Honestly, 4-year schools, we have so many students who are academically ready to go to U of O, ready to go to OSU, a 4-year school. The housing at 4-year schools costs more than the tuition at 4-year schools. For a lot of our families, that becomes problematic. And so potentially staying in the Valley, living at home the first year, especially if you're getting some grants, can make community college really affordable. So students don't have to take out loans to pay for their housing at a state school those first or couple of years. Another great thing about community colleges compared to some of the bigger universities is you're going to have smaller classes taught by full professors. So if you take calculus at RCC versus taking calculus at U of O, your calculus class at RCC or even SOU is probably going to be 30 people max. At U of O, it's a huge lecture class. You might have breakout kind of smaller classes with grad students. But at the community college level, you're going to have more of those small classes, full professors teaching you. Another thing students take advantage of is the ability to dual enroll in both community college classes and universities. So that's one way some of our students take advantage of their Oregon Promise funds and also take university classes at the same time. So they make the community college their home school, and then they take 1 or 2 classes at SOU or U of O or whatever state university is in the city where they're going to community college. And that works out well for a lot of our students. Some of the students who do that actually can live in university housing. And then those federal and state grants I've been talking about, so we'll get more into that. The Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, the Oregon Opportunity Grant, which is a state grant. Those funds go farther at a community college, so much farther, in fact, that a lot of our students, when they get their Oregon Promise money on top of that, they end up getting money back in their pockets to use for books, to use for a computer to live on, or to save for when they transfer to a 4-year. And it really makes a lot of financial sense. So any questions about this slide or anything I just covered here? Okay, so the other great thing about community colleges is they offer students these professional training programs where in 1 or 2 years, you can enter into an extensive array of fields. Looks like there's a typo there. And here's just a few of them, automotive technology, electronics, massage therapy, dental hygiene, firefighting, EMT, thinking of the ones that have been really popular with our students, physical therapy assistant, vet tech, aviation. And these are great programs. And I'm going to leave the slideshow to kind of take you, actually, let's go here. Oh, no, I'm not going to leave this yet. Let me just talk for a minute about, didn't want to get off of this too quickly, just so you can take this in. I want to mention that I talk to students in the CCR classes because one of the slides that you're kind of required to see at least some point in high school is one of those slides that kind of says education pays. Like the more education you have, right, the more money you're going to make from if you just have a high school diploma to a 2-year degree to a 4-year degree to some kind of professional master's, PhD, and that sometimes holds true. I have a master's degree. I love what I do. I chose to go into education, but students who come out of RCC with a 2-year degree in automotive technology or physical therapy assisting are going to be making more right out of the gate than I'm ever going to make. So that whole thing about the more education you have, the more you're going to make is really a little bit of a myth buster. The other side of the graphic is the more education you have, the less likely you are to be unemployed. And that really does hold true. Like, education is really important. You want to find an educational pathway that's a good fit, like we talked about. So I just have this slide on housing and residence life on community college campuses, because for a lot of our students and parents, this idea of their student going to college kind of has that traditional feel of they should get to go away somewhere. I want them to have that dorm experience. And a lot of students want to have that too. I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons Central Oregon Community College is popular with our students is they have dorms and they have dining halls. Southwestern Community College in Coos Bay also has that. It's a beautiful campus over there if you ever get to Coos Bay and want to check it out. They also have our Oregon Culinary Institute on their campus, and they do all the food, and really they have like the best food on any college campus I've been on. I haven't been on any in a few years. Other schools like Portland Community College, Lane Community College in Eugene. Those are community colleges that are also really popular with our students. They're excited to go live somewhere like Eugene or Portland. They don't have their own dorms, but in those cities, there are a lot of student housing type, what word am I looking for? Complexes. So like kids were telling me, I was in one of the CCR econ classes yesterday, that they're going to be living with friends in Duck Village in Eugene. And they kind of have the vibe of a dorm, except they have apartments. So students often will have their own rooms and then share a couple of bathrooms, or students will share a room. And then they also have kind of business centers where there's printers for students to use. And then usually there's activities that are organized, and there's obviously going to be laundry facilities. And so a lot of our students who go to Portland Community College end up living at University Point, which is one of those types of places in Portland, and they have shuttles that go to the PCC campus. Same with in Eugene, some of those Titan Court and Duck Village. So that's another option if students are really, feeling like they're ready to spread their wings a little and get out of Ashland and want to be on their own, to really check out some of these residence kind of housing options at community colleges. And that's another thing, when students get the Oregon Promise, they get a Pell Grant potentially, or a partial Pell Grant. The money that is over the cost of tuition at the community college, the students get back, right? Like I mentioned, and a lot of the students then put that money into their housing, which makes the community college experience even more affordable to be able to live on campus. So this is where I wanted to segue into kind of using RCC as a focus for some of their CTE programs that I just mentioned. So I am going to go over here. I've got all these different things pulled up. So this is the homepage for RCC's CTE programs. Can you all see it? Someone give me a thumbs up. I don't see any thumbs up. Someone holler out that they can see it. I can only see like 3 people's screens. Oh, Jordan, thanks. Okay. So here's a way to connect with a CTE specialist. This link right here, I thought it's really interesting. It takes you right here to a PDF that you can download, and it shows you all of the degree and certificate programs they have at RCC. and kind of the starting average salary in the fields. I think that's pretty darn useful. Here you can scroll down and see all the different pathways they have at RCC. So computer science, business technology, early childhood education is a popular one with our students. Automotive, emergency services, EMT, firefighting, very popular, electronics, all the health occupations, dental hygiene, medical assistance, industrial welding, that's really popular with our students. So there's all these, I'm just going to use one as an example and hopefully it will work out. So let's look at automotive technology. I need to move this so I can then click. So they tell you a little bit about the program, class schedule, course description, graduation guides. Oh, this takes you to all the graduation guides. So you could see, you could find this for any program. So whether you wanted to look at early childhood education or automotive technology, we'll just stick with automotive technology since we're here. So it'll tell you about the program. And like I said here, it breaks it down by quarter. So what classes you would take. Why is this not scrolling? Okay. So this is the first term. These are your general automotive classes you would take, third term, fourth. And someone asked earlier in terms of general ed and high school. So right here you can see, and maybe make it bigger, for the automotive technology program, there's a certain number of general education requirements that I'm kind of circling here with my cursor. So you can see down here, they have math 63, applied algebra 1. So that's obviously below algebra 2. We have a class here that's equivalent to this. It's called applied technical math. We refer to it as applied tech. Students who take that class can get this math 63 credit while they're in high school. So it's really a great option for our students who are seniors who know they want to go into one of these programs, and they can get that math 63 taken care of while they're still in high school. I took 2 seniors last year. RCC has what they call a CTE signing day, kind of like the sports signing days, and both these students were interested in industrial welding. And the head of the program was so excited that they both already had math 63 because he said that was like the biggest stumbling block for a lot of their students. So those are the kind of things to look at. So if you're a student here who's already taken algebra 2, so you're above that, or statistics, you wouldn't need to take that. Same thing if you'd taken AP Comp and already have credit for writing 121, you wouldn't have to take some of these English classes. So I am gonna click back here. Oop, not there. So I just wanted to show you, they've got this little video. I'm only going to show you like a minute of it because it's just a visual of all the different programs they have. Maybe I shouldn't have done that yet because now there's play. And some of you might notice there's a couple of AHS students in here, graduates. Abe Dymark graduated 2 years ago, I think, and he's in the electronics program at RCC, so you might recognize him in this. He also worked at Music Hoop, so some of you might know him from there, but I'll just play a couple minutes of this so you can get a sense of everything that is going on at both RCC, and all of these programs are all over the state at the different community colleges. Okay, so I'm gonna pause it there. There's a lot more and it's easy to find. Obviously, it's on their website if you want to check it out. How did I get this back? Okay, there you are. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So any questions about RCC and some of the things I just shared? Okay. Oops, I need to go there. Okay. So now I want to segue into private career schools. So some examples there are culinary, tattoo artistry, massage, automotive, cosmetology. So you can see community colleges offer a lot of these programs like the culinary, massage therapy, automotive. So for a lot of our students who are looking at a career pathway that they could either go to a private school or a community college, that's when your research becomes really important, right? Checking out what the massage therapy program looks like at Rogue Community College or at Lane in Eugene versus going to a professional career school like the Ashland Institute of Massage. And there's pros and cons to each for students and figuring out which one is going to be the best fit for that student. When you have students that sometimes choose to go the community college route for culinary or massage, and sometimes students who choose to go the private career school because it's just a better fit for them for different reasons. Another thing that's important to do when you're looking at these fields is really talk to professionals, find out how they got to where they are, what they suggest. It's really a great way. I have a lot of students interested in becoming electricians right now. There's programs you could go through community colleges, there's apprenticeship programs, there's private trade schools, and the students are really trying to do their research and see what's going to be a best fit for them. And then I'm also going to talk a little about apprenticeship opportunities and Job Corps as potential pathways to careers in the next few slides. So any questions before we go on just about private career schools in general? One thing to keep in mind when you're looking at private career schools that comes up in the pros and cons is some of these schools you can use your federal and state aid at, and others you can't. So it depends on their accreditation, if you can use your federal Pell Grant. So just to use cosmetology as an example, we have a lot of students interested in going into that field. We have 3 cosmetology schools in the Valley. 2 of them you can use your federal Pell Grant at, 1 you can't. And so really looking at the cost, looking at what money you'll be leaving on the table if you qualify for those grants are important things to take into consideration. And so here's an example of some private career schools in Oregon and UTI. I don't know if they have a Oregon campus, but it's popular with some of our students who are interested in the automotive world. Just to give you an example, that Volta Line School at the top, I have a friend whose son just completed lineman school with them. I think it was only a couple of months. It was in Astoria, and now he's like a union member making good money, and it was an incredible program for him. So that was a new one for me. But of course, there's lots of lineman type programs or apprenticeships, but that was a new school to me. So apprenticeship programs are another way to go into career pathways. They're in some ways they're more intense for students. They need to be really organized because they're working in the field, but they're also doing classroom learning at the same time. And there's apprenticeship programs, RCC has apprenticeship programs. There's private apprenticeship program schools. Like I mentioned, the student who wants to be an electrician, he's hoping to go to an apprenticeship program up in Portland. That's a private apprenticeship program school, but it's very competitive to get in. That's one thing with apprenticeship programs. They're often very competitive depending on what program you're interested in and what community you're in. And so I wanted to escape from here a sec and show you the RCC apprenticeship page. So I won't show you this video now because we're kind of getting late and I want to cover some of the financial aid and scholarships and we're barely get done by 6:30. But just so you know, Google RCC, Rogue Community College apprenticeships. here. You could watch this video, learn more about them. Here's another great resource. This website is Oregon Goes to College. They have all sorts of information about every school and pathway in Oregon, and they also have a whole section on how to become an apprentice. So I don't have time, since I'm doing this on my own, to put all these links in the chat, but feel free to email me if you can't find them on your own, and I will just set you up with every link that we talked about here. So any questions while I'm pulling back up the PowerPoint? So Job Corps. Job Corps is a federal program that has Job Corps centers all over the country. I think we have close to 10 in Oregon, and these are campuses, students age 16 to 24, where students can go to learn a career. Here's some examples: advanced manufacturing, construction, finance, healthcare, homeland security, hospitality, transportation. I'm gonna stop sharing here and show you their website because it's really awesome. I hate when that little thing comes down and I can't. Job Corps, here's Job Corps. Okay, so this is the federal Job Corps website. So not every student can qualify for Job Corps. You either qualify by being relatively low income. So if a student qualifies for free and reduced lunch, they will definitely qualify for Job Corps. I don't know what the EFC cutoff is. It varies, but if a student is eligible for a Pell Grant, they are usually eligible for Job Corps. Another way our students have been qualifying for Job Corps is if a student has an IEP or a 504. That is another potential route into Job Corps. The best way, I think, to start looking at Job Corps is to check out the programs that they have. I think it's loading. And then you could scroll down and you could like see some general areas, or just kind of scroll through and see things that look interesting. Ooh, advanced forestry technician. I'm into forestry. I want to check that out. And then you click on it and it loads. It's a little slow here. But you can learn more about the program, and you can also look what locations have that program. So let's see, scroll down here. So here's information to know, and then you can see locations, and you can scroll down and see, well, this is the advanced one. I shouldn't have picked that one. It's only in North Carolina. Our students can go to other states, but a lot of the really common programs, they have programs at the Oregon sites. But this is really a great opportunity. Again, they have dorms, you live there, everything is absolutely paid for, totally free, plus students get a stipend. So it works for certain students. For other students, it's just, you know, too much of, you know, their too much direction, not enough free time, not the college experience they were thinking. But for some of our students, it's a great fit. And I just wanted to give a plug for this. Every 2 years, there's a Southern Oregon Trade Careers Expo. And we have another one coming up this fall, September 28th. It's in Canyonville at the Seven Feathers complex there. And we took 2 bus loads of students 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And it was awesome. They had an incredible time. I mean, booths from all these different careers and ability to check out equipment and get on helicopters and connect with people who, you know, work with Job Corps, who are at the community colleges, heads of these programs, to get information. So it's only for juniors and seniors. So even the sophomores here could go next year because they'll be juniors in the fall. So if this interests you, I'll be advertising it heavily when school starts in the fall. And depending on COVID restrictions and how many students we can fit on a bus, I think I'm limited to 50 is what I've told them I'll bring this year. So let me know if you think you're interested in this. I can start a list now because it's really something that you wouldn't want to miss. Okay, so just kind of as an overview, we talked a lot about this. So for community colleges, for apprenticeships, for private schools, It's a really straightforward and easy application process relatively. Looks like there's a question in the chat. Oh, that's a good question. Can you go on your own to the expo? I don't know. They have student groups in the morning and then they open it up in the afternoon to different, more adult from the population. So I don't know if anyone can actually go on their own. That's a good question, but if you email me, we can do some research and find out. So like I said, applying to community colleges is free. COCC and Southwestern Community College have a charge, but you can apply without paying the $25 fee. It doesn't stop you from applying. Get out and visit campuses, take tours, attend info sessions. There's a lot online now because of COVID, like all sorts of virtual tours. But now that we're able to get out and about now, especially if you're, looking at community colleges and programs in Oregon, it's easy if you're going to Eugene to check out Lane, to check out COCC and Bend, and then find a system to keep track of schools you're interested in. So a lot of our kids like to do spreadsheets, put the school, whatever deadlines there are, costs, maybe the pros to the programs, the cons to the programs, the pros to the campuses. It's a good way to kind of start keeping track of information, and then for parents and guardians and students to kind of communicate on kind of what they're thinking about and what's important to them as they start to look at what's going to be a good fit. Okay, so I'm just going to end up talking a little bit about financial aid. I'm not going to go into detail about it. I did do a financial aid 101 info session in April, and that is on the YouTube channel. We didn't really used to do financial aid sessions in the spring for juniors and sophomores, but now that the FAFSA application goes live October 1st, it's a really fast start in the fall to get seniors and their families up to speed on FAFSA. So I like to do more of that now for interested juniors and sophomores to really start to get a feel and families of what that's going to look like. So in the handbook, not going to look at it now, there's a whole section on financial aid with a lot of good information. So I always like to stress when you hear people talk financial aid, they're not just talking the free money, the grants and the scholarships. They're also talking about loans. Loans are also considered financial aid. So when you get a financial aid package from a school, it might contain loans. So it's always good to be aware of that. And to qualify for loans, the federal loans, which are usually the best interest rates, and for students specifically, they're the only loans students can really take out without having a parent or guardian co-sign. You need to complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, which I said earlier is what all financial aid revolves around. And you cannot do that until October 1st of senior year. So there's no rush. And like I said, I will walk students through this in the fall in their CCR classes. And then I have all sorts of usually evening sessions where parents can come in and get support with the student or on their own to do the parent part of the FAFSA. So it's really a pretty easy process now. Like I said, the FAFSA collects information about your family, both demographics, how many are in the household, how many are going to college, and also your family's financial resources. So any questions about that? I'm not going to go into any more detail, but definitely look for the financial aid night in the fall, because that'll be really important for you juniors now, especially for parents. Seniors will get it in their CCR class. So like I tell my seniors, it's like, okay, if your parent hasn't been coming to the information nights and you're the first kid in your family to go to college and your parents haven't been in college or been in college recently, you now know more about the FAFSA than they do. So get them to come to the evening presentation so I can get them up to speed so they can do their part of the FAFSA, which is really easy now because you can link with the IRS and then they can just upload your tax information. So just a heads up for this year's juniors who will be seniors next year, they will be doing a FAFSA for 2022-23 because fall of 2022 is when they will be entering college. So a lot of parents, students make the mistake of getting on before October 1st and filling out a FAFSA, because there will be one available. It will be the 2021-22 FAFSA for students who are in college this year and next. So if you hear your friends or a parent say, oh yeah, we already did the FAFSA and it's September or August, just know they did the wrong one. So don't freak out. I have a lot of parents and students call me kind of freaked out early on in the fall that they're behind, and they're not. So by completing the FAFSA, it also qualifies students for our Oregon Opportunity Grant and our Oregon Promise Grant. And our Oregon Opportunity Grant is our state's version of the Pell Grant. So for lower income families, this year the EFC cutoff for the Oregon Opportunity Grant is an EFC of 4,000. So for students, this year's seniors who qualify for both a full Pell Grant and a full Oregon Opportunity Grant, the Pell Grant is $6,495 for the year. And the Oregon Opportunity Grant, if a student's going to a community college, is almost $3,000. And for the 4 years, it's almost $4,000. So you can see already that if a student has financial need, their EFC is 0. Just between the Pell Grant and the Oregon Opportunity Grant, they're getting almost $10,000 to go to a community college for the year. And the average cost of community college tuition for the year is between $5,000 and $6,000, depending on the number of credits you take and what programs you're in. So like I said, the rest of that money will come back to the student for them to use, to live on, to buy books, whatever their needs are. So the Oregon Promise Grant is what's considered a last dollar grant. So for those students who have really low income, have a 0 EFC, they will get the lowest Oregon Promise Grant. So they've already got that 6,000, that 3,000, they'll get $1,000 Oregon Promise Grant on top of that. So that money will come back to them. Like we talked about earlier, for families that are not Pell eligible, so their EFC is over 6,000 and this year under 42,000, they will get the full Oregon Promise Grant, which this year is about $4,000. So that's $4,000 the state's going to throw at your student to pay for community college, which is about 2/3 or more of a year of community college, which really allows for a lot of our middle income families, it makes community college really affordable. And for students who really want to go away and maybe have that dorm experience at somewhere like COCC or go to Portland, it leaves the family more room to use the money they do have saved for college or can potentially contribute to college to help pay for housing. So any questions about that? The other big piece of financial aid is scholarships. And so we do a lot of that in CCR. Like I said, there's a whole scholarship section in the handbook. We have a lot of scholarships for AHS students. We're very lucky to have a super supportive community. Each year, our students receive over $150,000 in scholarship funds. I think we usually have close to 70 students who get at least one scholarship from all the different organizations that give scholarships to our students. So we'll have a big scholarship information night in the fall. But if you want to learn more about this, you can watch the financial aid night. I talk more about it, or check out the handbook. And most of the scholarships aren't due until the spring of senior year. And like I said, we work on it in CCR. But for juniors who are really gung-ho, if you look in the Grizogram, if you look on the College and Career Center page, there is a link to current scholarships, and they're updated all year. And sometimes there are scholarships that are for current juniors or sophomores. So you can kind of keep an eye on that. Our scholarship coordinator updates it every Friday. And then this last slide is just to let you know that in 2 weeks, we're going to have an evening like tonight, but it's going to focus more on four-year colleges and universities, both public and private. Again, how do you figure out what kind of school is going to be a good fit for you, and navigating the application process. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of you, and I'm going to stop recording. So bye to all of you who are watching the recording, and thank you for taking the time to do that.